Hi, everybody. Sorry for the delay on TikTok and on Instagram. Hi, everybody. It's Elektra, artist visa lawyer located in New York City. Again, I apologize for looking at the multiple screens, but I am live on TikTok and on Instagram and Facebook. So, as I told you, we will be discussing questions that I have received. So, as I said, the first couple of days during this week, I talked about notable approvals, specifically cases that have been approved in record time, so 10 days or less. Um, and the rest of the week, so today and tomorrow, I'm going to talk about questions that I received via email. So I'm encouraging you to please send me your questions via email. I'm happy to answer them and give general information about the O1 process. So I received a question from a person who is not currently a client, a person who watched our live yesterday. And the question was about filing procedures. How can we file the O1 case? So there are two ways to file the O1 case and many other immigration petitions. So the first way is you located here in the US. So you need to have current status for me to be able to change you from O1, from, for example, F1 status or B2 tourist status to O1 status. But what happens if you're not in the US? Can you still work with an attorney if you're abroad? Can you still prepare the documentation while you're abroad? Can you still file and get approved from abroad? And absolutely, you can absolutely file your case from abroad. You do not need to be physically here in the US to file your case. Obviously, sometimes logistically, it makes it better to be able to talk to the lawyer, go to the office, etc. But for example, if you are just at home, back in your home country, or even in another country, and you're like, you know what, I want to take my career to the next level. I want to come work in the US and take advantage of all the opportunities the US labor markets have to offer. So as I work with artists, I represent artists, we all know that the heart of the arts industry is located here in New York City, where my office is. So you have, for example, you have Broadway, you have all of the major production companies, you have all of the top art schools here in New York. So it would make sense for you to want to take your career to the next level here in the US, in New York, for example, or for example, in LA. So if you're an actor, a reality TV show star, an influencer, then you're going to go to LA. My influencer clients, I have a ton of them who are located in Miami. And during COVID, Atlanta opened up as a great hub for film and TV because of their really relaxed laws for due to COVID. So, for example, if you are in the arts industry, the US is absolutely the place where you want to be to take your career here, right? Maybe you're here and you want to go here. The US is the place to be, but you've never stepped foot in the US. You don't know anybody in the US. You didn't go to school in the US. You didn't do anything in the US, but you still want to come here. Can I file your case from Egypt? Yes. France? Yes. Kuwait, I've done. I can absolutely file your case from abroad. Now, what are the major differences? What is the difference between changing from tourist visa to artist visa or getting the O1 approved directly with you being back home? So the biggest benefit to you being here and me changing your status from O1, from F1, for example, student visa, to O1 is that as soon as I get that paper approval notice, that document that says that you've been approved, you're clear to work. You don't need to exit the country for the visa stamp in your passport. You're clear to work. As long as you have a valid passport and you have your O1 approval notice, which is going to have your I-94 at the bottom, you're clear. You're good to work. You don't need to go to the consulate unless you need to travel internationally. So this is a huge benefit for clients. I have many clients who haven't left the US in 6 years just because they're busy working on their case. So once you get approved by USCIS for the artist visa and you're located here in the US, you are clear to start working. Now, if you are abroad, is it the same step? So you will get approved by USCIS. But once you are approved, in order to travel into the country, in order to come back to come into the States, you are going to need a visa stamp. You're going to need the visa stamp in your passport, allowing you to enter the country. So A lot of the times we think that a visa stamp is to give you work authorization. That's not the case. You can get work authorization with a work permit. You can get work authorization with a paper approval notice. For example, in the case of the O-1, where you're doing a change of status, the visa stamp in your passport, this allows you to travel in and out of the US. Now, really fun fact, if you are a Canadian national, you do not need an O-1 visa stamp. You need your paper approval notice, and you can travel with your valid passport in and out of the US. Now, once we've established that you've been approved by USCIS, you're located abroad, what is the next step? Can you come into the US? No, you need a visa stamp. How do you get the visa stamp? You get the visa stamp at the consulate. Now, a lot of you might think, well, that's not a big deal. I got a visa stamp for my B2 visa, my tourist visa. I've done it before. And that's great. That's fantastic. But the adjudication or the judging for the O-1 is different. There are questions, there's an interrogation, and obviously some consulates are better than others. Now, what is the whole point of being interrogated, being questioned? Well, the consulate is governed by a federal agency known as the Department of State. It's the Department of State that is going to issue you the visa in your passport. Notice I said Department of State and I didn't say USCIS. So USCIS, the federal agency, will approve you for O-1 visa classification, but the O-1 visa stamp is going to be rendered by the Department of State. Now, since they are two separate agencies, let's guess, can you get the same result, right? Well, the short answer is no. In worst case scenario, you're going to get the approval from USCIS and you'll get the denial from the Department of State, meaning that you won't get the visa stamp in your passport. Now, this is something we can discuss in another live, but let's say for the sake of the example, you get approved for the visa stamp. But let's talk about the process of actually getting the visa stamp within your passport. So you book your appointment through the consulate, and you show up to your appointment, and you are asked questions. You're asked a bunch of different questions. Unfortunately, it's not the job of the officer to grill you, right? Their job is purely a functional job, right? It's a technical job where they're just supposed to stamp the visa based on the approval of USCIS, because the approval from USCIS is evidence that you qualify for the O-1. Certain consulates, unfortunately, take it upon themselves to ask you lots of questions, right? Questions that go possibly beyond the scope of what their job is. And you need to be prepared to answer that. You need to be prepared to answer, why are you extraordinary? And this is a legal question. This is the question that we answered within the legal petition. So you have to be prepped on that. They're going to ask you who you're going to be working for. What is the type of work that you're going to be doing? All of these types of questions to ascertain two things. Number one, it's a vetting process. They're making sure that what was included in the petition is truthful and factually accurate. And at the end of the day, this vetting process, I'm sure on an intellectual level, we can all understand this. We all understand that the US government needs to make sure that what was submitted and approved is actually true. Obviously, you've probably heard instances of fraud that have occurred in the past, and the government just wants to make sure that that is not happening with you, which is why it is really important to work with an ethical attorney. It's really important to work with an attorney that's going to make sure that everything included within the petition is truthful and factually accurate. In our firm, I will never submit a document that is not truthful and factually accurate. So when we talk about contracts or future employment, we sometimes clients get bad information from friends and family as to what makes a contract a valid contract. It's a legal document, and there's certain rubrics that we need to follow to make sure that it is truthful and factually accurate. And so number one, you want to make sure, the government wants to make sure that what is included in the petition is truthful and factually accurate. And as I said earlier, this is something that we can all understand on an intellectual level, given the sheer size of the United States, given past fraudulent conduct, and given just the general history of the U.S. And number two, they want to make sure that you qualify, right? And certain consulates are very matter of fact about it. They will ask very simple questions, following the law, understanding the law, and understanding that their role is purely technical. And other consulates are going to dig deep, right? Certain consulates are better than others, and they're going to ask you a lot of questions. So to answer the question that this person emailed to me last night, can I file a case from outside of the US? You can absolutely file a case from outside of the US. It's just we have an added step. Now, that's not necessarily a bad thing at all. It just means we have an added step. Most people, they like to file while they're here located in the US because they like to be in the same time zone as the attorney. Sometimes that makes a difference to people. They like to be able to come and drop off documents. That makes a difference to some people. And most importantly, they like that the fact that once they get approved and they get their really beautiful green paper approval notice, that they can start working one shot, no problem. They don't need to go back. As I said, I have multiple clients who've been here for 6 years, 7 years, and they've never gone back home. Not because they don't want to visit, but just because it makes more sense professionally for them to stay here. So as I said, we answer the question. Please send me more questions so that I can try to answer you and support you on this journey. These 5 weeks of summer, we're coming to the end of the first week of summer. So next week will be the last 4 weeks of summer. I want to try to answer as many questions as possible because it is crunch time. I know for a lot of people who are in this journey. Yesterday, we got a lot of questions from somebody that was already represented by another attorney. That should be a sign that if you're asking another attorney questions, that maybe you're not really trusting your attorney. Maybe it's time for you to sit down and have like a strategy session with your attorney to kind of figure out what's going on. So again, I want to help as much as possible. For those of you who know me, I am a true patron and supporter of the arts. Having a really strong relationship with the arts because I went to art school and I went to school on a photography scholarship. I worked for MTV and the Style Network. I had my documentary screened at top film festivals, and I did all of this before becoming an attorney. So I have a really strong understanding of the arts and different types of arts because I'm originally from New York City. I studied theater for 10 years before I got into the visual arts. And again, I think it's really important to have an attorney that understands your language, your artistic language, especially because you don't want to go to another attorney when you're already represented. You already paid somebody to do your case and you don't trust them. You have to ask me or another attorney. So we have a question. Can I get an O-1B visa as an experienced cinematographer if I only have work proof and not any press proof? So this is interesting. This is an interesting question. This person is asking if you can file for the O1 without any press. So the answer is absolutely. There's 6 regulatory criteria for the O1. Press is only one of them. You have 5 other opportunities to argue your petition. And remember, you only need 3 to qualify. That is the legal minimum. I don't like to file with 3. I feel like I'm just giving USCIS a very bare platter. And I think we can all agree when we go to restaurants, we like to see like a really scrumptious full meal that has us really engaged, as opposed to having like a bare minimum where you're kind of just like tasting. And that's what I feel when I'm arguing the bare minimum of it's not the bare minimum, it's the legal minimum of 3 criteria. I feel like I'm just giving them, what they asked for. I'm not giving them that extra oomph. So yes, legally, absolutely, you can file without proof because there's 5 other criteria, a total of 6 criteria. You need a minimum of 3 to qualify. So the answer is yes, absolutely. But of course, you want to look at the totality of your petition. You're a filmmaker, you're a cinematographer. You understand that it's not just about one aspect. If, for example, your depth of field is off, that's going to affect the whole vision that you're trying to recreate. If, for example, the props are not aligned properly, if somebody's out of focus or out of frame, all of those little details are going to impact that final imagery that you want to that you want to demonstrate. So I have another question on Instagram. I am a creative director in fashion. Great, I represent a ton of you guys, but have pivoted to be an ESG sustainability director in fashion in the last 6 years. Can I still apply for an O1? Would I still qualify? So I cannot answer if you qualify because I do not know enough about it, but I can talk about those professions. So you're working in the fashion world. So even though you're not working as a creative director, you are still working within the creative field. And I can bet $5 that you are using creativity in the work that you do. So sustainability director, I mean, that's great. That means you have to research different brand partnerships, different ways of creating things, and director is a leadership position. So this is, I can't say whether or not you would qualify because I don't know enough. You would need to have a consultation with me, but I don't see anything not creative about the work that you do. Remember, the O1 is divided into two subcategories or two prongs, right? The artist visa, and then you have education, the arts, etc., sports, which is a higher legal standard. That legal standard is more akin to the EB1A, the green card standard. So BB Briand, creative director, yes. Sustainability director, yes. You're working in fashion, so I would bet $5 that you're using creativity in the work that you do. Can models get global talent visas? Absolutely. I represent traditional models, so those who are on catwalks, those who do editorials, and also influencers. So global talent visa, I'm not sure if you're referring to the U.S. artist visa. I'm a New York State licensed attorney, so I can only talk about New York State law and federal immigration law here in the U.S. So if the question is, can models get U.S. O-1B visas or U.S. artist visas? Absolutely, I represent a ton of artists. Viru, appreciate, great. I'm glad that my question was able to help you. So Aubrey Graham asked for what the 6 criteria are. Great. So the first criteria is letters of recommendation. The second criterion is press. The third criterion is your portfolio. The fourth criterion is your future work. The fifth criterion is commercial success. And the sixth criterion is high salary. Now, do you need high salary to qualify? No, it's just one of the 6. You need a minimum of 3. So at least 3 out of these 6 that I discussed. So I hope that this was helpful. I hope that this sheds a little bit of light into, the artist visa. It is one of the more complicated visas because it's much more high concept and highbrow, and requires understanding of the arts. I think that if you want a cookie cutter petition, you could certainly file a cookie cutter petition, but why would you gamble with your life? Why would you gamble with your livelihood? Why wouldn't you do something that is done at a really high level? My mom would always say to me, if there's something with your name attached to it, you want to deliver a really strong product. And this is something that we espouse and value in our firm. We aspire to deliver really strong a la carte legal services to make sure that clients are approved and to make sure that clients are able to live out their livelihood here in the U.S. This is really important to me, both as someone with an international background and somebody who is a former artist. So I will be back tomorrow. Send me your questions via email if you don't want to send them in the chat. Feel free to go and download my O1 visa checklist, my free ebooks. They provide a lot of insider information, not just the cookie cutter deconstruction of what the artist visa is and what the criteria are, but it gives you my insight, my thought process into what the artist visa is and how to argue the case. Again, I just want to repeat, this is not legal information. This is not legal advice. I'm just providing you with information based on my experience and to support you on your journey at whatever journey point in your journey you're at. So stay tuned for tomorrow. I will pick a question from somebody that sends it to us, or I will pick a question from one of my clients. I get questions every single day, and I try to provide as much information as possible. So thank you all for watching. I will see you tomorrow. And tomorrow's Friday. It's a happy day. That means you have the whole weekend to work on your cases. Whenever I'm working with clients and I'm doing my portfolio reviews on like a Thursday or Friday, I'm like, you should be happy we did it on Thursday or Friday. That means you've got the whole weekend to deliver me work for Monday so that we can finalize your case. So very nice talking to everybody on TikTok and on Instagram and on Facebook. I will see you guys tomorrow. Bye, everybody.